Hi students, with 4 months to CAT, I'm sure you have lots of questions, and today we have 3 legends from the field to answer those questions. Now, the first question that we have for all of you is, if I'm starting today, right, what should be my preparation plan? And firstly, is it possible to crack CAT in 4 months?
So I'll begin because VARC is the first section. You can definitely crack CAT because we've seen people do it. So it's not impossible. Is it easy? Definitely not. So that means that you have to be committed to the cause and you definitely do not have the opportunity to take long breaks. Now, it also depends on my skill level and where I am today. So if one can establish a baseline, so for example, for us, establishing a baseline is SimCAT 0, right? So you take a baseline test, you realize that VRC is okay, it's not too good, not too bad. Then I can probably work with about 2 hours a day, approximately. We know that RC is the most important component, so that is the first skill that I need to strengthen. I would also need to work on my basic reading speed so that I can get through that section fast because we know that in VARC attempts do matter. So I'm solving RCs every day, I am reading every day, and in tandem, if I can also work a little bit on my vocabulary, even if it is 10 to 15 minutes, I think this is a pretty comprehensive prep plan. And you should be able to see the difference if you continue with this plan, with, of course, taking the tests in between and analyzing those tests.
Okay, you mentioned vocab. So generally, because there are no direct questions on vocab, a lot of students, when they begin their preparation with say 1 year or 1.5 years to go, typically they focus on vocab. So somebody with 4 months to go, should they still do a little bit of vocab or they should not?
No, it is helpful because when you're reading, a lot of times our mind tends to fixate on certain terms that we don't understand. Normally, I tell them that you should not do that, you should continue to read. But certain questions do hinge on particular words. So if you don't understand those words, you are likely to get the question wrong. Now, how do I work on vocab? First, obviously, I can look up the word in the dictionary, but that takes time, and a lot of us are not really that patient, right? So that is why we have the Apti Builder. So you can probably use that, and that's a very, very fast way to build your vocabulary. But even if you don't want to do that, you can simply just decide to learn 4 new words every day. Okay, that's the easiest, slowest, and yet very helpful method to do it. So I think that's definitely worth the effort.
And for DLR and QA, what should be the prep plan like?
So I definitely believe that, like Kumud said, that 4 months a student can crack the CAT. It's not that it cannot be done, but definitely requires a lot of effort. Means from here, if you're also planning to do a lot of other things in life, I don't think so it will work. I think these 4 months should be dedicated to CAT completely. So, I would say, like Kumud said, 2 hours of verbal every day. It's as good as saying that finally you're going to need, normally what I talk about, that whatever you're preparing, the time ratio is like 2-1-1, 2 for quant, 1 for RRDI and 1 for verbal. So if she's saying 2 hours, which means a total of 8 hours a day is what we're looking at. So yes, this can include your class time and everything, but you will require that 8 hours. So if you're studying for 1,000 hours, I'm sure you can do well at CAT. A lot of students who start around 300 days in advance also study for 1,000 hours finally. In fact, this can be very concentrated 1,000 hours and hence can maybe help you better also. So that's my suggestion. As far as coming to quant, we'll talk about DLR, but coming to quant, just because you're starting late, there is no excuse that you don't know the basics. You will have to do the basics. Means we all know that finally, whatever, when we look at shortcuts and everything, in an exam situation, from a student's perspective, he's not able to crack more than 2 questions through shortcuts. What he's going to get, those 12, 14, 15, 16 questions, whatever he needs, is going to come through the basics which he has done. So if you go through the basics, go through our concept videos where we've done a detailed job, then the class exercise, the practice exercise, the benchmarking test, then the AI builder which we have, all these things, if you combine it and if you keep practicing, I think you have enough time. So when I said 1,000 hours and we spoke about the ratio, so we have approximately, 400, 450 hours for quant. And I think that will be good enough to finish the syllabus and do justice to it. So that's my take for how should your 4 months be. But keep doing everything in detail. Yes. Maybe the only thing I could add is, I'm sure the students will like it, is that because it's a 4-month period, you could skip a couple of chapters. And when I say skip also, we always mention don't skip them completely. Do the basics at least, so that when applied in some other topic, you can do them. And obviously, we all agree that finally permutation, combination, probability, these are not asked now in CAT so much, even though we had seen a question in the last year or something. But these are the main topics which are not really asked. And then depending on your background, if you're a commerce student or whatever, maybe a little bit of functions, maxima, minima, you don't need to go to level B and C, just do level A. That's my thought on quant, DLR.
So if I look at someone who is starting, let's say with the DI preparation for the first time, as I must have told earlier also that people don't have a experience for the DILR. So right now, if I let's say look at solving one particular set, will normally going to take a 10 to 15-minute timeline. And if I also account for the review part, it will take maximum, I would say, half an hour. If I include the solving part and the, let's say, review part, it won't take, let's say, more than half an hour to, let's say, solve one set. So if I assume that a person is solving 2 sets in a day, they have to devote, let's say, at least 1 hour minimum, I would say, in case of a DILR, let's say, going forward. And this will take care of roughly, you can say, 125 into 2 will give you a close to 250 new sets they will encounter. I'm not accounting for the set they have, let's say, attempted in the mocks or the, let's say, some PYQs they are going to solve, but minimum 2 sets in a day they need to tackle. In case someone, let's say, spending more time, given that they might have left the job and preparing for CAT, or someone, let's say, are done with their final year and are looking for their joining date, they can spend more time. So they should at least give 1.5 to 2 hours, and that can account for 3 to 4 sets in a daytime.
Okay, so I want to pick on a couple of things that you mentioned. One is the 1,000 hours, because let's say I'm a working professional. I am not going to get so much time maybe. So how do I firstly prioritize and optimize my current schedule? So if there are any suggestions on that, and I may not be able to even do 1,000 hours, right? In that case, will I be underprepared for the CAT in your way?
Not necessarily, Prasad. What happens is that if you don't have 1,000 hours, then you put those 500 hours or 600 hours, whatever you're going to do. See, there will have to be some quantum to it. It cannot be completely, okay, say I'm going to prepare for 200 hours and I'm going to crack the CAT. It's maybe not going to be possible. But if 500, 600 hours really dedicatedly, completely focused, might also do well. So as Param said, that finally, whether it is, for me, I would have said 3 to 4 sets a day. Param said 2. Now, it is okay if you solve 2, but if you're actually learning a lot from it. It is not necessary. Sometimes students solve 4 or 5 sets a day, but they don't learn from it. They don't learn from their mistakes, or they don't learn how to select a set and all these things. So for me, 500, 600 hours of dedicated time is, I think, the bare minimum. Besides that, I feel that then the student should start thinking that, okay, maybe CAT 26 is not for me if he's starting fresh now.
And you mentioned 2 sets per day. So the way I understood it is it's more than the SimCATs that you take. So if you're taking a full length test, let's say a SimCAT or a PassCAT paper, this 2 that you mentioned is over and above that.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. So the next question that I want to ask, right, a lot of students have is that they keep doing the effort. So we spoke about so many hours of effort, both for VRC and DLRQ, etc. But I'm not seeing any progress. So I've been attending classes or I've been watching master classes, but I'm not able to translate that into superior performance in my mocks. Then what do I do?
I'll start again. VRC, that's a very frequent question. And I think it's also a little difficult to judge why that is happening, because this is not really a section where you can learn a few concepts and see immediate improvement. So when a student comes to me and says that I have been putting in the effort, and in fact, some students have also said that I have been doing this since last year, and yet I am not seeing any improvement, then you have to dig a little bit deeper. And first of all, there is a reason. You just need to figure it out, right? So one of the reasons often is that they don't really know how to analyze their performance or analyze their mistakes, because it seems as if in VRC, once I have solved the passage, I will look at my answers, I will figure out how many wrong, how many right, and then leave it at that. But that's not going to help, because then you will repeat the same mistakes. So in that way, even if I solve 500 passages, how does it help? at most, that tells me that I can solve 500 passages. So what you really need to do, even if you have the time to solve only 2 passages, say, because let's say your life is very busy, solve 2 passages, but then you go into why your chosen answer was wrong. Try to come up with your own explanation for it and then check whether that explanation matches. Now, if I'm able to consistently do this, after a while, I will start to see details that I did not see earlier. This is one thing. The second thing that a lot of students don't do, which I discover only later, is that they don't apply anything that we teach in class to their actual solving. So in class, we tell them, please try to frame some sort of a thought flow map. You don't have to write it, but you have to have it in your head. So if there is no map, if there is no sense of what the main idea is, and I'm going into the questions blind, then what good is my reading? The second is we tell students to frame a shadow answer, particularly for main idea, primary purpose, and reasoning based questions. But it's too much effort to do that. So then I don't do it. And again, I'm straight away jumping to the options. So if I'm not applying any of these skills, then my performance will not improve. So let's dig a little bit deeper and see what we are not carrying forward. And maybe then things will get better.
Okay. And for DILR and Quant, because a lot of times students say that, for example, tournaments, I have solved, let's say, 20 sets of tournaments. But when I face a tournament set in the SimCAT, I'm not able to solve it. So I'm not seeing any progress on that front.
So I'll take DILR this time. So my thought over DILR is finally selection is more important than solving. That's, I think, the key thing today. DILR, people are missing this out a lot because finally 95 to 98% of the students are going to be able to solve maximum 2 sets. So you need to select out of those 5, those 2 sets and then decide that, okay, now I'm going to give my 30, 32 minutes, whatever I'm left with, I will give to these 2 sets and I will try and crack them completely. Students are not applying the methods of selection which we have discussed with them. How many direct statements, how many indirect statements, are the questions open, are they closed? Have I seen such similar sets earlier? All that we've discussed and we keep discussing in every SimCAT. Now, that is the learning they need to carry forward from every SimCAT. That why did I, in fact, like how Kumud said, okay, why did I mark this answer? For me, it is why did I select this set or why did I not select the set? Because in DILR, once you narrow down to selection, okay, this is it. I can select these 2 sets out of 5 or 3 out of 5, more or less done. See, finally, it's actually not very difficult. You need to get the top 1 right and the bottom 1 right. That this is the top first one which I'm going to solve and this I'm definitely not going to solve. And after that, if you really the second one, if you take even a little bit chance, you will not go too wrong. So that's my thought on DILR, that selection is very important. And that is what if I just kind of link it to your previous question, that students who have less time, I think that they should start focusing on all these things. It's okay if they are solving only 2 sets a day. But then with every set, are they learning all these things is important.
Okay. Quant, anything you want to add?
So in case of Quant, again, the main thing has to be selection portion, right? And I believe there's no magical portion. In case it's someone is going to stay in the race, they keep on believing in the process, the result basically is going to show in a positive result. But it might take time, let's say for the people who are starting now, because once they will do a couple of modules, let's say maybe when they are going to be done with the algebra or a bit of arithmetic, the scores is going to show improvement for sure. So again, the main reason, let's say for the fumble part basically would be in case of a SimCAT, when they get a poor score, people tend not to attempt the SimCAT further. It's about finding out the root cause, and especially with the engineers, I would say, because they generally feel that they can solve each and every problem. And they try to convert every problem in terms of a type A only, because they feel they can solve each and every problem. Even a type B or a possible type C also, they bring it into the A bucket, and that leads to a lower score in case of Quant, and they don't get the true potential score in a Quant section.
So
just adding a little bit on the Quant part, like you asked, the question was, why are the scores not improving? Are you doing the right things? For me, first get through arithmetic. If you get through arithmetic completely and just focus on one module, say arithmetic, even for the next 15 days, 20 days, 1 month, if you focus only on one module arithmetic, I'm sure on the day of the CAT, there'll be around 6 to 7, maybe even 8 questions. And you will have around 4 to 5 out of those will be level A. Get your focus right, arithmetic, algebra, and then maybe even topic wise. not getting into detail, complete detail of a topic. Like you can't say, okay, I need to know full geometry. Yes, but you need to know a little bit, maybe if you know even till triangles. Most of the time, a couple of questions come from there. So get those things right. Every SimCAT have one extra chapter added to your repertoire so that you can actually solve or look forward to solving more questions, is my suggestion.
And how do I revise for QA and DLR specifically? Because a lot of students think that for DLR, there is no way I can revise. Once I've solved a set, what's the point of going back to it? The second is with QA, the problem is of volume, that I have so many things to do. And let's say I've already done, say, time speed distance. Maybe I've done class exercise, practice exercise, benchmarking test. Now, how should I revise that? Because I'm not able to solve TSD in SimCATs. So, any suggestions on that?
So for me, I'll just tell you how I've broken down things is that if you take one chapter, first time when you solve the chapter, you would solve around, would say 60 to 80 questions, including very basic stuff which we come across with the concept videos. Even within our concept videos, we'll have 5-6 questions. Then with the concept videos, then you will have a little bit of, then class exercise will have 20-25 questions, then benchmarking, practice exercise, and then benchmarking test. You will solve around 60 to 80 questions, and that is your limit for that first chapter. When you want to revise, you should keep at least 25-30 questions of that topic. Now, where will those questions come from? They could come from sectional tests, they could come from chapter-wise other tests, or the AI Aptitude Builder. You can solve similar questions of the same type. So you can take the whole practice exercise and say, I want to create the whole same practice exercise, one more, and AI will create that for you. And so same way, if you keep solving 20-25 questions for a chapter when you're revising it the second time, if you have time and you're going for a third revision, let's assume a student has started in January or December as syllabus, and now he has a time for third revision. Then the third time he can solve only 10-15 questions, and then can keep doing that every time and keep revising. I think, or third time, so actually you can just go for the whole module test or something like that. Also, a section test is good enough.
Even in case of a quant, they can tend to take the help of the formula builder which we have in the Aptitude Builder app. Because people say once I go to geometry, I forgot the formulas of, let's say, arithmetic or algebra ho. But in case of Aptitude Builder, you can definitely use formula builder and they are going to be topic wise. So a formula is there and then immediate application of that formula is going to be shown to them so that they can apply the formula carefully.
Okay. And how do I revise for DLR?
In case of DILR, again, the point is, once suppose, for example, I got a new set, it's a new experience every time because I would say 9 out of 10 times you will say that the set which you are seeing is going to be a new one. And we don't know, let's say, how to go about the same. Exception could be the case of Venn diagram, where you know how to structure them, let's say, logically, and you can follow them. And I believe Amit sir will agree to me that you can create a strength in a Venn diagram by practicing X number of sets over here. So when I talk about a reference point of, let's say, revision, you can look at the SimCATs. And the SimCAT, we have the, let's say, AI practice. So for example, if I have solved a tournament bet set and I was not able to succeed in the exam duration, the mentor must have shown a beautiful way to solve it. Then I should try out that, you can say, a replica-based question. And that can give me good confidence to see whether after teaching or after getting the solution, whether we can show the perfections or not.
So for DILR, what I believe is, very frankly, just keep moving ahead. Don't get stuck with what I could not solve. Yes, you should go through it. Again, during most of our videos, we say also that this set is not even worth looking at. Great, just leave it. And just keep moving ahead because you need to solve more and more. You need to get, but you need to remember what you've solved. You need to look at a set and tell yourself, okay, this is the type of set I always do well at, or this is the type of set I always do bad at. I'm sure I've said this at least 10 times before. I'm saying it for the 11th time. The experiences of the Naya mixer grinder and Purana mixer grinder. I think what, 2002 or 2003 set, or maybe some other year. Still, you look at a set of that type and you say, this is a bad set to get in. Let's not get there. So exactly, you have to build for yourself what is a bad set to get inside and what is not a good set. I should try such sets. They work for me. Venn diagram, definitely, as Param said, is an area which you cannot come out of the test and say, okay, there was a Venn diagram set, but I did not solve that one. I think that's really bad. If you're looking at Venn diagram, it came on the day of the cat. Great. You should be happy about it, actually.
And sir, all of us know, of course, a lot of students are repeat takers. Now, for a repeat taker, the last 4 months are very crucial. They have gone through that process. Some of them may have done well in the previous attempt, some of them may not have done it. what would be your suggestions? Again, section wise we'll go for repeat takers.
For someone who has done well in the ARC, I would definitely advise keeping in touch with the section, because then you could probably push that score a little bit further. And in VARC, we've seen that once you reach a particular accuracy, say if you're at 65 or 70% also, it's just better to attempt more. So if you can maintain the same accuracy and maybe solve something close to 22, 23 or even 24 questions, that might help you improve your score, which is great. In order to do that, I need to maintain some discipline and try out that exercise very frequently. That entails saying I will do 4 passages because I think I can do better than last year. So I will try doing all 4 passages in all the tests that I'm taking and see how I do. So this is pushing yourself further. Now, this is for someone who's done well. For someone who is kind of around, let's say, an 80 percentile, not yet in the 90 zone, clearly there is something that you have missed last year. This also means that probably either your speed or accuracy were not that great. So do you need to work on speed or do you need to work on accuracy? Now, what is good accuracy? Again, I'm going to quote that number of 65 to 70. If you have an accuracy of 80% in VARC, I think that's fantastic. But that also means that you can do more questions. If it's at 70, still means you can do more questions. If it's at 60, you might want to consider why it's 60, right? One of the other things that I would want to analyze is, can I do better in RC or can I do better in VA? Maybe last year I didn't pay that much attention to VA. So this year I definitely need to put in more effort. Or maybe last year I realized that there was one passage that I left, which I should have done, but I didn't do it because it was boring. So then I need to ensure that I'm familiar with all types of passages so that I don't repeat that performance. So for someone in the 80 zone, you just need to check how you can do maybe 2-3 VA questions more or one more passage. Maybe I don't want to solve 22, maybe I just want to solve 70 to 18 questions. Now, third category, someone who believes that they are not very good at VRC. Whether it is true or not is a different matter. How do I know? Maybe I got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 percentile, right? So definitely scope for improvement. Now here, one of the things that I realize is that a lot of times students are not bad at VRC. They just had the wrong strategy. So Amit sir was mentioning earlier that selection is important. For some reason, selection does not happen in this section. So it is important to select. It may not be a science, it may be an art, but it still needs to happen. So how do I select? I need to be able to identify at least that one passage that I will definitely do. And just like DILR, that one passage that I'm very unlikely to do because I just won't get it. Everything else in the middle, I should attempt. So if I'm not able to do this, then I have not worked on the strategy at all. So definitely need to work on strategy. Second thing is that some people believe that I should be doing only one passage or only 2 passages because RC is difficult. The fact of the matter is that in every passage, there will be maybe 1 or 2 easy questions, maybe 1 moderate and 1 difficult. Are you going to get them all right? Definitely not. So if I'm doing 2 passages, if you just look at the numbers, out of those 8 questions, you're likely to get 5 or 6 right. Then what is your score going to be? So for most people, I think 3 passages becomes important in the VRC section. So that is one thing that we all have to start getting right, the strategy. The other part is, this is something I talked about earlier. If you are doing the work, but you're not seeing improvement, please work on the analysis. Because if you work on the analysis, it definitely gets better. For example, when it comes to parajumbles, a lot of people believe we are just bad at parajumbles. I will never do them. This blanket strategy also is a very bad idea. Sometimes you can get 3 marks out of it, so why not try? Anyway, there is not much to lose. Third thing, timing. In this section, you are on a treadmill. You cannot look back. You have to keep moving forward. You can maybe increase or decrease the speed, but you have to keep moving forward. So anyone who decides that I am going to read the passage, but I will come back to the questions, that will not happen. So let's make sure that we keep moving forward, whether it is RC or whether it is VA. When it comes to, say, something like a summary question, I have read the paragraph. After that, I realize that the options are very difficult. Let's not mark something just because we have invested the time. What we have to worry about there is, let's not invest 3 minutes into it in the first place. Maybe just invest 1.5 or 2 minutes so that you cut your losses. So VARC, a lot of it comes down to strategy, and I think that itself could boost your score by about 6 to 7 marks.
So moving on to DILR and QA for repeat takers. We'll start with DILR. Any suggestions?
So, Prasad, what happens in DILR finally, you could have been a very good student, were getting regularly, say, a 95, 96 in mocks, and on the day of the CAT, you just went and messed up. So, you'll have to first figure out where were you last year? What was your score in mocks last year? Just don't look at your CAT score. Okay, so figure out where you were in, how many sets had you solved? Have you figured out all the Venn diagram, tournament, all those type of sets? Have you understood how to select a set, which we spoke about so much, that selection is very important. And then start thinking. If you're already at that level, just keep solving more CAT level sets, which will come through SimCATs, which will come through more AI-based sets on the SimCATs, or anything else, the section test or the DLR sets, which keep adding PYQs and so on. Just keep solving more and more sets, maybe even 2 or 3 sets a day from here onwards also will be good enough for such a student. The other categories, that the student who are actually not prepared and just thought that, and I've heard this so many times in DILR, sir, DILR, what can I do? Either I will get it right or I will not get it right. I have solved some 100 sets and sometimes I get all 2 right and sometimes I get 0. Well, if you were in that category, start right from the basic, start doing everything in detail, go through all your each topic wise, understand what you need to do in DI, get those logical DI, missing value sets. So I've been doing a very interesting thing nowadays. When I start the set, I talk about how many missing values in the table. So if it's a 4x8 table, which means there are 32 missing values. But if it's a 4x4 table, it's only a 16 missing values. So normally the 16 missing values will take lesser time, unless there is too much direct data there. So do all these things and understand how much time am I going to invest in this set? Will I get it right? How many direct statements? For me, that is the most important thing. How many direct statements, how many indirect statements? And I will keep saying that up to number of times, that is the most important thing in DLR. And for somebody who was really poor, start fresh. Think of yourself as a fresh student. It is okay to think of yourself as a fresh student in one section. While verbal, you could be good and you could give only, say, 1 hour, as Kumud said, per day. Now to just keep brushing up and really do well at that section. That's my thought on how do you prepare for any section.
Okay. And for QA?
So in case of Quant, first of all, again, the checklist has to be made in terms of whether last year I have done properly the class exercise, practice, benchmarking, the module test, the SimCATs, how many SimCATs I have taken seriously, the PYQs. And then you can, let's say, have 2 set of people. The one basically who might have got a 60 or 70 percentile, and the other basically who might be good in Quant, but still manage to get only a 90 or 95 kind of percentile. So first of all, for the people, let's say, who are in the range of 60, 70 percentile, if they want to, let's say, reach a 90 or 95, the aspiration is to reach that number. Set selection basically is going, or the question selection part basically is going to handle the situation well. And they don't need to run after, let's say, looking at the shortcuts, because ultimately they have to solve only maybe 7 to 8 odd question. And that can, let's say, do the task of reaching them, taking them to a 90 plus kind of percentile score. Now, again, as Sir told, it could be that the arithmetic section could be a weaker one, or they might have done well in one section and the other part was not touched properly, algebra, or let's say geometry for that matter. So they maybe, let's say, focus more on, let's say, building the gaps, let's say, for the algebra section. At the same time, let's say, continue to do well in the arithmetic section. And for the people, let's say, who are currently at a 90 percentile, even for them, it might have happened that they might have done arithmetic well, algebra well, they might have left the modern math part, let's say, or for those people, you should look for how to improve. The only way, let's say, to go to a 99.5 kind of percentile, if they want to achieve in case of a quant, will be by getting more number of right. And that can, let's say, possibly happen if they are going to solve the easier question in lesser time. So for that reason, they should solve those sum in a shorter time. That can give them the saving or the buffer, which can help them to solve extra 3 to 4 questions. And those are the type Bs.
Okay.
So I'd just like to add one thing over here. In fact, this goes back to your revision question as well as this question. I believe that every single day when you're studying, you should spend 15 minutes revising concepts. and especially topics like geometry, which are such concept-heavy topics. Once you know concepts in geometry really well, your confidence in geometry will go really high. So in general, you should just make it a habit, like how Kumud said, reading or vocab initially. The 4 vocab words also is good enough. So I would say 1 chapter concept also is good enough, which if you look at our videos is maximum 15-20 minutes. If you keep revising these concepts really well, no, your quant will keep improving little by little. It's going to be a slow improvement, but yes, there will be improvement definitely. Don't tell me that, sir, I remember the concept. It's not about remembering the concept. Every time you look at a concept, look at it in a different way. How could I have applied it in that particular question is how you need to look at.
Okay. And sir, now in the last 4 months, most students focus on SimCATs and past year questions. So we'll be talking about these two. First, we'll start with past year questions. So when should I actually do past year papers? Should I, let's say, maybe start them in August or September, or keep them for, let's say, October, November? So what's your take on it?
I believe past year papers can be taken August, September. I would not keep it too late. The major reason is because this is my belief that past year papers, when you solve a past year paper and say if you get a 95 percentile, it does not reflect the correct score. Because what happens is you've seen similar things definitely somewhere or the other. Either a similar question in SimCAT. It's just, it's not that when we make the SimCAT, we think of it, but it's just there on the back of the mind. Last year, something like this was asked. So let me make a similar question. Or because you're a CAT student, your Instagram feed will also show you similar questions, or so many people are solving the CAT questions on Instagram nowadays. So you will have come across those questions. So when you finally take the past paper, CAT 26, 25, whatever paper you take, the surprise element is gone. Even a nice difficult question, the surprise element is gone. So I don't believe the past year papers give you a true reflection of your percentile. But it is important to solve. You cannot come back and say, okay, I did not solve it, because we've seen so many questions or types of questions which repeat. So many. In fact, I was just discussing with Param the other day that wanted to make a video around that. The questions which have repeated in CAT, or type of questions which have repeated in CAT. So for me, past year papers are not true reflection, and I would prefer students taking the SimCATs toward the end more than the past year papers. That is for, I think for all areas. I will not speak about verbal, but Quant DILR, I definitely agree.
Okay. With VRC, anything specific for past year
No, I
papers?
think it's the same pretty much. Yeah, because I know for sure that we have taken some of the previous year's questions in our material as well. So I think the only thing that strikes me as weird is that I often get asked, should we solve this passage because it is a part of a past year paper? You should solve the passage because it's a good passage to solve, not because it's from a past year paper, right? So let's not say because it was in CAT, therefore it is more important. That is just to get more perspective. But otherwise, yeah, I agree with that.
In Quant, I've heard this so many times. I'm solving a CAT question where it's not written CAT. Sir, is this CAT level? I say, no, it's not CAT level. It is a CAT question.
Okay, and with respect to SimCAT, so what's the number to aim for? So we have 20 Proctor tests, we have 20 take-home tests. Somebody who is, let's say, just starting or maybe has spent a couple of months preparing, how many SimCATs they should aim for and how to analyze those SimCATs? We'll start with VRC. So what do you think is a good number and how to analyze the VRC section?
I think the number is pretty subjective, but I think I would definitely aim for more than 50% at a very basic minimum. The reason that it's subjective is that if I started my prep today, then I may not have that much time to take the SimCATs right now. At the same time, I don't think it's a good idea to keep the SimCATs till later, because I've seen students saving their tests, thinking I will first study and then I will start taking them. That does not help at all. So the moment that you complete, let's say, the first module, I think you should start taking the SimCAT. So that's the right time to do it. The analysis is something that most people can improve on. Now, earlier I got asked the question, how do I analyze my VARC section? The first thing that you're supposed to do pretty much all the time is solve it without a time limit. All of a sudden, when there is no time pressure, the section will seem very fresh. So that's step one. Step two is all the questions that you have gotten wrong, figure out why you got them wrong. It is not enough to just say, oh, this was easy, but I got it wrong. Let's move on to the next one. So let's go into the reasons. The other thing that people now need to do, which they will be able to do, is look at how they could have improved their score. And for that, we have AI insights, right? So we don't really need to really tell the students this anymore. They have access to all this information. For example, let's say that the cutoff was 25 marks, but I got to 18 marks only. So how do I get to those 25 marks? Which are the questions that I could have solved, right? So if you start taking a look at tests that way, then your goal suddenly becomes a lot more realistic. Then you're no longer saying, I'm not doing well in VARC. Then you are saying, I should have solved 3 more questions, which is a very different way of framing the problem. So that is what analysis should consist of. And the last part of the analysis should be, what is the goal for the next test? Am I going to try and improve my accuracy? Maybe by skipping a few questions that I took a risk with this time? Or am I going to try and solve a few more VA questions? So if you are able to set that goal, then you know what you have to do in the next test. And for this also, the AI will help you, as it always does for everything now.
Okay. For Quant DLR?
Again, as ma'am told, for me, the number has to be at least 20 for sure, and the all proctored one should be taken. The reason basically is that in the actual test, you never know about the difficulty level, which is going to be come across. And across the SimCAT, we let's say create a pattern where some papers are too difficult. So a moderate difficulty level of Quant and a, let's say, very easy DI, sometime it could be other way around. So all possible permutation combination of the difficulty we let's say create in the proctored mocks. Take home, obviously, if you have the time, definitely you can take a couple of the take homes for sure. And for those, maybe I would say strategy. Maybe if you want to change a strategy, you want to play around just like you play on the nets. I would say go and attempt first of all in the take home, and then maybe let's say you want to experiment the same in the proctored ones. Now, as far the analysis is concerned, I would say we should, when we provide the solution, the quality solution, we provide the Jugaad method or the better solution. I would say people don't invest time in, let's say, looking at the question which they got right. But sometimes they will find that if you watch that solution, there could be some better methods and possibly you can spend, let's say, or say possibly 30 seconds. But understand this part, 30 seconds over 10 question can give you a good amount of time. And that can, let's say, possibly help you to cross maybe 2 more questions. And a plus 6 can make a difference from 99 to a 99.5 kind of percentile. So yes, it will demand time. If I'm going to, let's say, all possible solution, run them at a 2x speed. If you find something better, pause and maybe go at a x or a 1.5x speed over there. But those things are going to really make a difference. At the same time, if I see a problem, which I possibly have taken 3 minutes, and sir basically has given a good solution, maybe I should try out the AI-based practice for those to see whether the magic can be, let's say, created by you or not.
Okay. So your number is also 20, at least 20
At least
SimCATs
20
you should-
proctored one, I would say yes, 15 to 20 is what should aspire for.
For me, Proctor 15 to 20 is a good number, but I would want a little bit more take homes to be taken, at least 10. At least 10, because that is where you will, actually solve with a little bit more comfort. You're not worried too much about the benchmarking score that time and everything. So you'll have more comfort solving them and you'll realize that how well you do in comfort. Second thing, which I also want people to do is, which I think I mentioned earlier, is that build your stamina for a SimCAT and hence for the CAT. So we've discussed this earlier. Write one more section after every single SimCAT and let that be a rotation. Once verbal, once DILR, once Quant. So every time you sit for a SimCAT, see that you have one section ready. Don't give me excuses, sir. Where should I take it from? Whatever. Take it from a take home. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, manage that. But every time you take a SimCAT, write one section. So your body and your mind is learning to work for 2 hours, 40 minutes. So then on the day of the CAT, when you will want to work only for 2 hours, you'll be really fresh for 2 hours. And I think this, even though this sounds very cliche, but it really helps you finally on the day of the CAT. I've seen this helping a lot of students. And finally, you're also studying a little bit more, you're practicing that much more, one more section, and you'll understand how things go. Otherwise, we've all noticed that towards the end of the Quant section, your mind gives up. Okay, it's too much. 2 hours is too much. And people don't understand this, that they feel, oh, in engineering and in college exams or in commerce also, we have 3-hour papers. But most of the time in those 3-hour papers, you're not thinking all the time. You are just writing what you have learned. You by hearted something and you just coming and putting it out on paper. While here, for those 2 hours continuously, your mind has to work. And that is why I believe this strategy helps. Number 15, 20 is good, but I think whatever number you write, even if you write, say, a few less, but analysis is very, very important. Analyze those tests really well. I think Param has already put down the detail of analysis. For the DILR, I'll come back to it. Every SimCAT will talk about selection of the set. Why should you have selected the set or not selected the set? Please go through that part very carefully.
And one crucial bit is motivation part, because throughout the SimCAT journey, and we have seen for hundreds and thousands of students that eventually who do well, they don't have linearly growing SimCAT percentile and scores as well. So how do students keep themselves motivated throughout these 4 months? Because there's so much negativity also happening around exams and in general about prep also. So anything that you would suggest students to do to stay motivated?
CAT studies is like a test match. Think like Virat Kohli. It's not T20. For me, that's where it comes to. So keep studying, keep working hard. Start thinking of what all you will be able to achieve in life once you've done your MBA from a good college. That should be motivation enough, first thing. So I always believe that, this I used to tell, I think what I started teaching in 2006 or 7. And those days we remember we used to tell them, if you need motivation, most of you all look at your boss. And if you don't want to go back to the same job, you want to change your jobs. Start working harder. And I'm talking about 2006-7. That time also people had the same issues. And I'm sure they have the same issue even today. So keep that motivation and definitely don't worry too much about the scores. See, scores will improve. There will be a point, there will be an inflection point, which we already mentioned earlier also. There will be a point where your scores will suddenly improve. It will need that one test where you have a 90, 95 and that confidence will come. So keep working hard till there and then think.
Anything specifically for VRC, how do I stay motivated? Because a lot of times students are like, okay, I have been reading, I have been solving RCs, I still don't see any improvement, and suddenly one SimCAT I have maybe 20, 30 score, the next one I have maybe 8 to 10 marks. Now, what do I do?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what the students are saying, because VRC progress is like, jogging down a road with no end in sight, right? So what happens in this section is that sometimes we solve the whole thing intuitively. So introspection is necessary. You have to be able to admit to yourself that this test I wasn't very systematic and therefore perhaps my marks dipped. But if you're in a situation where you're saying, I have no idea what's going on and my marks are just fluctuating, what should I do? Should I stop taking the SimCATs? I think temporarily, maybe, until you feel up to doing it, because there is no point taking the next test knowing that you're doomed. But that break should not last very long. You need to kind of set a target for the next SimCAT and say, whether I feel better or not, I will definitely still take a test. The other thing that helps is to set yourself small, achievable targets instead of laying down a grand score for yourself. I will get 35 plus in the next test. That doesn't really help. I will solve 2 more questions in the next test is probably a better target to set for yourself. So I think that is a better way to push yourself to keep doing it. But otherwise, no one else is going to motivate you. You have to just keep moving forward.
I really like the target part. I really love that discussion. In fact, in Quant, I used to start with saying 5 questions. Let's start only at 5 questions. 40 minutes, 5 questions. And even if you select only one area like arithmetic and solve 5 questions, I think you will get all 5 right. Then let the whole July or August pass with 5 or 6 questions. September, let's come to 8, 10. But you still have time. So if you start with 5 questions also, even today, we are in end of July. Even if today you start with 5 questions, I'm telling you, Prasad, a lot of students will do well. And same in DILR, Param will agree. One set, Param. If you start with saying that, okay, I will solve in 40 minutes, one set.
Ample time, sir. I think ample time to solve one set, 40 minutes. Even if someone take 10 minutes to select the
perfect
sets, 30 minutes you have, let's say, to solve one simple set. You are doing well.
So we have almost reached towards the end. I want to ask you if you can give candidates one tip or one suggestion, advice, whatever you want to call it. Something that you picked based on years of teaching students that they should do in the last 4 months or they should not do in the last 4 months to be successful?
Well, there is so much that one can say about success, but if you're talking about the current goal, which is doing well in the test and making it to a good institute, um, I think one thing that helps greatly is to visualize the life that you want ahead. And whenever you're feeling low, maybe keep that vision in mind so that you keep getting back on track. Sometimes that involves putting up a few posters in your room or maybe even visiting the institute that you want to go to.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
We've done that 1 year, taken students to Ahmedabad, and right really motivates them.
Yeah, I'm saying that on the basis of personal experience. Once I went to the institute, I knew I wanted to be there.
So for me, one thing which I think you should do is cut out a lot of noise which is there around you, especially in the present. Don't think too much ahead. Don't go too far ahead of yourself, Start keeping your small targets, keep achieving them. Don't worry. It's not only the CAT. I know we are here to discuss today 4 months to CAT and everything, but it's not only the CAT. You have around 6, 7 exams and you need to do well at one of them. Even if you do well at one of them, you will get a good college. And I think that's important. So keep that motivation. It's not only till the end of November, but maybe till end of April, May next year. And when you think that way, you have a lot of time and I'm sure you will do well.
Parmeshwar, anything you want to add?
So I will just say that keep believing in the process, keep fighting. It's not over till it's over. So keep believing in the process and keep on taking the mocks. The journey won't be smooth. It won't be a flat line. The scores are going to go up and down. But if you keep on doing the right thing, the results is going to show.
So that was the end of it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, let us know via the comment section. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it, and we'll see you soon. Take care and all the best.